Thanks for hanging out with me on another Saturday morning. My name is Paul Tobey. Welcome to the Jazzmentl channel. If this is your first time here for our live streams, welcome. At this point in the live stream is when I post the coupon code. There is a link pinned to the chat. If you can't find the sheet music, it's called Bésame Mucho Latin Jazz Piano. If you can't find it in the chat, then just go to jazzmentl.com and do a search for Bésame Mucho. It will show up, and then use this coupon code, which I'm going to type in, called Latin Saturday. And yes, it is Latin Saturday. Let me know if for any reason that coupon code doesn't work. I tested it 3 ways from Sunday this week so that we don't run into the same problems that we did last Saturday with people going, I can't find my sheet music. And I'm not going to do any troubleshooting on the sheet music this Saturday because we want to get into the music. Hopefully you enjoyed the beginning part of that. We are going to be discussing how to play salsa montuno. It is not the easiest thing to do, but there is a way to get started with it, and we're going to go through from beginning to end on how to play this amazing type of music. Now, obviously, I'm doing a lot of jazz soloing and things like that, but really today is all about rhythm. And we've discussed rhythm in other Saturdays before. A lot of people want to talk about swing. The funny thing about salsa montuno is it's also based in 2 and 4. So when you're playing things like this, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's still swing. I know it's straight 8s, but it feels swing. So the accents are on 2 and 4. Otherwise, you're going to be playing it backwards. So really think 2 and 4. And that's how to get the feel, right? Okay, so that's really, you got to get that into your soul. So what we're going to start off with is the montuno itself. And we're going to go through from beginning to more complicated. So this is the really basis of all salsa montuno. Let me make sure that I'm showing it on your screen. There we go. And you'll notice it's just one note to start off with. And it basically works like this. If you actually look at the sheet music, and I'm going to do a little bit of writing on the screen because I think it's important to do that. If you look at this part of it, grab the right screen here. So you can see this is just one note. Okay? And I want to make my pen a little bit smaller because it's a little bit messy here. Notice that except for the first 2 notes, every other note is on the offbeat. So it's on the and of 2, the and of 3, and the and of 4. And then if you go to the last one, this is the one that gets the most accented, leading back to 1. So it's a 2-bar montuno phrase. I would suggest that you play that as many times as you need to play it in order for it to feel comfortable. Play it with both hands too. I use my first finger and my third finger, so thumb and third finger. Now, if you go to the second line, now we start to build chords on top of that because obviously it sounds really dumb to play single notes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to play a C minor chord. When we get to the tune Bésame Mucho, you'll see why we do that because we're going to play Bésame Mucho in C minor. So it's the same rhythm, except we're adding now the rest of the triad. So C to E flat to G. Do you see how at the end of the bar here, you still got that accent here leading to the second 2-bar phrase. Play that with both hands too. Then what you do is in the right hand, you play an octave instead of just the root. So octave here to there. And you really want to dance in your head. Then what we do is we get a little bit more complicated by, and I need to get this one off your screen and just show the PDF here, unless I was just only showing the PDF before. Amodi says, hey, Paul, finally made a session on Saturday. Great. Glad you could make it. And somebody showed up at 2 a.m. That's cool. Must be Australia. Okay. Let's go back to here. All right. I got to scroll down a bit. And so we're going to tackle the top line now. So this is the first time we're doing arpeggiating. So instead of this, we're going to arpeggiate the first 2 beats. So the left hand and right hand play this in octaves, but then the right hand duplicates the top note. The first beat and the and of 2. It's going to be a little bit tricky the first time you play that because it's a feel thing that sticks after a while, but it may take you a few minutes to get it. And then you continue the rest. Now, the cool thing about this is now you can play inversions of this chord. So go to the second inversion and do the same thing. Now go to the second inversion. Now you start to see that it creeps in what I played when I first came online today. Right? So then what happens is, once you get to that point, then you start to throw in different extensions of the minor chord. Actually, let's go back to this one first. So the top of the line there is now you really start to sound like an authentic Cuban player. And your ear, it's funny, the ear of the listener doesn't necessarily hear that straight. They're hearing, wow, what is all that strange rhythm going on? But it's really based in very simple. But because of the way you're arpeggiating, the ear sort of bends it and thinks, where is 1? And that's the whole goal with salsa, is to keep that feel. But it's like, where is 1? We don't really know. And then if you go to the second line here, we can play not just the flat 6, but we can play the major 6 as well. were playing that on the root, look at the last line. The last line actually goes down the line cliche from C minor major 7, C minor 7 to C minor 6th. All of this sheet music, by the way, is available in the free download. So what I did was I included the Bésame Mucho sheet music in the arrangement, but I also included all of this beginner Latin Montuno stuff. So you can practice it on your own. The next thing we want to do is start incorporating chords all together. Put chords together. Instead of just playing one chord, in this case, we're going to play the chords to whatever, C minor to G7 to F minor 7 back to C minor. So then, if we go from the last line here, so instead of playing the root of G, we're playing the first inversion from the third of G. And then the third of F minor. And then the second inversion of C minor. Back to G. Things like that. Okay? And then what you can do with that is you can start to arpeggiate the chords as well. Is that, and then you can play the inversions of it. So in this particular case, we're going to go up an octave. So play the line cliche. Let's play that one more time. Interesting, right? And then the next line is C minor. And then scroll down. That's the one I played at the ending to Bésame Mucho. And then one more time. Go all the way up to the major 6th. And then we're into the tune. At this point, I probably have a few comments or questions, so let's go check it out. Finally made a session. Paul, the link does not work. There you go. Go to jazzmentl.com and search for Bésame Mucho and try that. Good morning. Anybody know the coupon code? Yes, the coupon code, one more time. We spend a lot of time troubleshooting coupon codes here. I'm going to have to come up with an easier system. Coupon code, one more time. Latin Saturday. Post it. Hopefully that answers your question. El Grupo Chache from Dallas. Cool. Peter Herzum, coupon code Latin Saturday. Good. Thanks for posting that. Okay, so if the coupon code doesn't work, yeah, this happened to a few people last Saturday. Here's my suggestion. You may have been on jazzmentl.com before and may have used other coupon codes. If that's the case, then you're going to have to clear your cookies or your cache. So clear your browser cache or open a different browser that you're not used to working with and try it again. But basically, it's a cookie browser cache issue.
info@jazzmentl.com. I get the request. I can send the sheet.
Okay, so, and for those of you, if you send an email to info@jazzmentl.com, we can get both of the link and the coupon code to you before noon. But you have to email us before noon. So info@jazzmentl.com. Let me write that in the chat. info@jazzmentl.com. Okay, questions about music now only. For the rest of you who are struggling with coupon codes, that's because you're not paying attention to what we're doing here. Hopefully we're learning something. Can I hear from those of you that are actually listening to the tutorial and commenting on those things? That would be really awesome. So we don't have to troubleshoot coupon codes anymore. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up, based on all of the Montuno stuff that we've been doing so far, I'm going to actually throw up the arrangement that is the free download. And it's several pages long. So what we're going to do is I'm going to play through it and make some comments about it so that you know how to practice it. And yes, this is the actual arrangement that you're seeing on your screen. So we're going to go through it from the top. Now notice that there's nothing in here that wasn't in the how to play salsa montuno sheet music that's also available in the download. If you actually go to that, the title of it is up here, how to play salsa montuno. So there's nothing in here that wasn't in here. It's just we're putting it together in some type of arrangement. So let's play it together. Okay? So my suggestion is you play that really, really slowly, figure out what the notes are. One more time. And then goes on to the next line. In this particular case, it's now going to play the major sixth as well on the C minor chord. Now, interestingly enough, I didn't write out some of the things that I played off the top, but it's following the same pattern. So look at this, C minor, and go right away to the flat 6. And then go to G7. G7, hear that? And then we're just doing this up to the G. So from the 7th to the sharp to the major 7th to G. The only other thing we did was arpeggiate that. Okay, I don't have sheet music for that because I want you to start figuring out your own Montunos, because that is one that I worked out myself. You can basically do whatever you want as long as it makes harmonic sense. So let's take that and let's maybe move it to the root. Start way up here. Okay, so we're doing a little bit of improvising. You basically know what the chords are, and then you have to use that Montuno rhythm with your arpeggiation. okay? And then we're into the tune. So again, if you're just joining us, we went through this whole piece of sheet music, which is Salsa Montuno from the very beginning. And it just kind of goes progressively from beginner to harder, more complex using chords. Then, when we get into the tune, the interesting thing that I did with this tune, and again, you can see the bass line that's in there. It's never on the beat. And you'll find that with bass, with Salsa Montuno. It's called a tumbao, Tumbau. And that type of bass line is never on the beat. You can see that the only time it ever hits a beat is on beat 4, which is really the end of the beat. Let me explain that better. It's not 1 and 3. People clap on 1 and 3. Salsa is on 2 and 4, and the only time it hits the beat is on 4. So that makes sense, right? Playing those two together, by the way, is not the easiest thing to do. I wrote it out at the beginning of the tune, but here's how to do that. I don't know. Let's try this. I didn't want to dedicate a lot of time today to talk about how to play those two things together. That really is a rub your tummy, pat your head kind of thing. It's obviously much more difficult than that. But I do have a video called How to Play Salsa Montuno and Tumbao Together. It's a pretty popular video. You can actually look for it on the Jazzmentl.com channel. Sorry, on the Jazzmentl YouTube channel. And you can check that out. But again, it's really hard to play this without playing on 1 in the bass. Let me just quickly check in. The question is, should you still practice these with the metronome? I wouldn't do that right away. I mean, I think the better way is to kind of find a salsa backing track. I do have some on the Jazzmentl.com channel that you can download. I would try it with that rather than a metronome, because the metronome is clicking on 1 and 3 typically, and it's really hard to feel that. If you can feel a metronome on 2 and 4, then go ahead and do that, but most people won't be able to do that. So my suggestion is practice it first and then maybe add a metronome, or practice with an actual salsa drum beat, like some kind of MIDI track or some kind of recorded track. Because I can't even to play that and literally count 4 with my foot is not the easiest thing to do. So my suggestion, like I said, is to practice it without a metronome first or with some kind of backing track. Stuart says, I hope that answers your question, Dan. Let me know. Paul, can I ask, do you practice or recommend practicing with a metronome? Oh, that's the same question. Okay. I think the metronome in this particular case, like I said to Dan, I don't think it's a good idea. I really need to feel that rhythm, and if I've got a metronome sort of banging on 1 and 3 or banging on 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to kind of confuse me. So I don't really do it that way. I can't even I don't have a metronome. I never use a metronome, by the way. So if people ask me, do you practice with a metronome? It's like, never. I never do that. So I don't have one here, so I can't even demonstrate it if it were a metronome. But, you know, if you even try to tap 1, 2, 3, 4. I can tell you how, I don't practice that. That's incredibly difficult to do. So hearing a metronome and playing this type of Montuno is just going to be very messy. So let's go back to the tune and see how we can get into trouble with the actual melody. So one of the things you'll notice I did, if you look at A, I've really tried to keep the flavor of Montuno in the left hand. So just play the left hand by itself, because we did this before, right? And you can see that every now and then, like look at the end of bar 2. So bar 2 of A section, you've got the 4 and, which is, and it's starting the beat all over again on 1, right? Starts the Montuno pattern again on 1. So I've really tried to keep that flavor in the left hand while playing melody in the right hand. The other thing that I did was I used the line cliche. And then it goes on to the next bar. So let's try and play the melody and that together. Okay, and then it goes down to the next line. That's interesting, right? If you look at, and I'm just going to move it up here, if you look at the very first bar that you can see, look at the left hand. So it's playing on a beat that the piano is not, that the melody is not. Right? Really just, it's all about rhythm. Now these things, if you're just playing Latin music for the first time, this is not going to come easy. And I wish I could say that it is, but I would say it's not in most cases. If you're like experienced with Latin music, even then this type of thing is not the easiest thing to do. So let's go back to A section. When I play it, by the way, because you've got the introduction section, right? By the way, I shouldn't say easy or hard. It's just unfamiliar. I think if we use words like easy or hard, just from a energy perspective, it's like, oh my God, it's hard, so I'm not going to do it. But unfamiliar, how do you make something more familiar? You just work at it little by little. When I get back into the melody from there, right, from the intro, right, I'm going to bring the volume down. That, right? When the left hand is playing, when the right hand is not on those last few bars. Right? Okay. So then it goes on B section, it just repeats the A section, and then it gets into the bridge. Now, when I played it in the opening section, one of the things that I did was I didn't keep going with this pattern. Because I don't always play what's written, and quite frankly, I didn't remember what was written. It's okay to play this written part. What I did instead was I made more of a bigger deal out of legato in this section, so I might have done something like this. right? And then get back into the... outro, which basically looks like it goes back to the top, right? And then just repeat the top section. Okay. Let's check in with you and see what you're up to in the chat area. Jazzmentl Polindara. Jazzmentl. Yeah, me too. What backing track do you recommend? There is one. If you search for backing tracks, or just go to the backing track section of jazzmentl.com, there's actually a menu at the top, and you'll find one in there. That's the one I would recommend you practice with. Now, the other thing you can do is just kind of search on YouTube for, say, like a drummer playing salsa music, which is kind of how I find my drum music. But then I put bass to it. So I think as far as backing tracks concerned, I don't really know of any other except when you go to jazzmentl.com. So I hope that answers your question. And Richard Francis, or Francis Richard, asks, what is the difference with bossa rhythm? So bossa nova is very different. If we played a typical bossa nova, typically what a bossa does, in this case, it doesn't do this. You can feel that. You can do a Montuno there, but it doesn't really fit because bossa is more like it's more like a triplet floor. Now, the other thing, too, is while a salsa player is playing, the bass player is playing on the offbeat, right? A bossa is played on the beat. Now, a lot of people play bossa lines like this, bass players. But it's all on the beat. I think bass players should really just play on 1 and 5 without the and, because it's not a typical bass player line. Okay, so that's kind of like the difference. So bossa nova is played on the beat, salsa is played off the beat in that tumbao rhythm, right? Right? Okay. So, Francis, I hope that answers your question. My son took mine and won't give it back. I don't know. And I won't ask for it back. Ask for what back? Oh, metronome. Oh, I get it. I had to read back in the thread. It's like, what? Okay. Master at work. Yeah, I mean, you know, master. I like the word master because it typically means a mastering of the instrument. I don't know. I wouldn't say that I've actually mastered piano, but there are things that I've mastered. Like mastering everything, that's a difficult thing. But mastering a specific element, a specific genre, a specific style, in this case, Latin Montuno. I mean, when I play this stuff, you cannot think, what is the bass line and what is the right hand doing? There is no way that you can go, oh, the left hand's doing this. If you try to do that and play the right hand at the same time, there's no way that's going to happen. So I do have a tutorial on how to play those two things together. But I think the word master means if you do that enough times, right, you just become masterful at it, which is why they call them master classes, because we're hosting a class by a master about a specific thing. So thank you for the comment. All right. Now, the other thing that I wanted to just briefly mention, because we only have about 19 minutes left, and by the way, thank you all for joining me. Next Saturday, another tutorial, another piece of sheet music. I hope it's helpful to all of you. The next thing I want to talk about was just a little bit of soloing. Now, you'll notice, and I'm not going to talk about scales and chords and things like that, but you'll notice that when I started soloing, I gave up this. If you were to solo with that, really hard to keep that going and think of melody lines at the same time. So I ditched that and just played like a McCoy Tyner type of thing where I'm laying down a power chord, 1 and 5, and then playing force over the chords. Now, the interesting thing about the chords is, and you might want to think about it like this. I know I wasn't going to talk about scales, but think about this. This is the scale. And let's do this scale. Okay? I don't know what that is. It's a scale. But basically, play force on that same scale. Keep the notes intact. Great sound. Listen to that. It's a great sound. So you do it with one hand. Right? And that's all I'm doing. I'm just playing force because it's a more modern sound, and then playing some type of solo in the right hand. The other thing too is, if you look at this chord, it's going up the scale, but it's such a cool chord because it contains this tritone, which is F7. So in my world, C minor and F7 are interchangeable. They're kind of like the same chord. You can still play C minor scales. It's just F7, so it makes it more dissonant because it contains this tritone. Goes to C7. Now, I do a turnaround at the end. So let's go to the chords, right? C minor to F minor, F minor, back to C minor, to C7 with the flat 9, to F minor. And here's the turnaround. C minor to to A flat 7 to D minor 7 flat 5 to G7. Okay, so C minor, A flat, D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 with some kind of alteration, right? Okay? And that's how you solo. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of fun. How many of you think that Latin music is pretty awesome in this context? I mean, we hear a lot of like pretty simple bossa novas and things like that, but I think when you get into like more Montuno and salsa and things like this, I think it really starts to take off. There are other tunes that you can play like this, by the way, just in C minor, right? Softly is in a morning sunrise. Thinking about, I mean, I know we have a few minutes left, actually about 10 minutes. Hopefully you were able to go grab your sheet music. And if not, just email us quickly before noon, because I look at the actual, when the email comes in, right? So if the email is time-stamped before noon Eastern Standard Time, which is in like 10 minutes, then we know that we can grab your sheet music. Last week, we did the same thing. I got emails like 2 hours later. I'm not sending sheet music in that particular case because I can't reward people for not showing up. So they watch the recording and then they expect the free sheet music. That's not how this works. We're trying to work together and I'm trying to answer all of your questions in real time and I want to reward you for doing that. So thanks. All right. I think one of the other things that we can do just from a creative perspective is play some type of introduction that is rubato and then get into the salsa montuno. So I'm going to take that off your screen right now, and we're just going to work without it. And I'm going to play some type of introduction. So here's what I do when I'm thinking introduction. What is the actual chord progression? We walk through that, right? C minor, F minor, whatever. How do I take that and make some type of rubato intro out of it? So what I might do is something like this. play lots of notes and it just absolutely doesn't work. So you have to toss that out and think of a different ending. Okay, right. I missed my microphone on that last comment. Hopefully you heard it. A. Perez says, do you know how to play other rhythms too, meaning variations of this one? Yeah, I mean, you know, we talked a little bit about Bossa Nova earlier. And we can talk about, let's see, what other Latin... No, there's a bunch of different clave rhythms that I'm not totally familiar with, but I've seen them in sheet music and things like that. I'm not going to go through them today because there's a lot of them, but this is the basic Montuno rhythm. So if you're like playing a Latin tune, and it is a salsa Latin tune, and really there's two main usages of Latin in jazz, salsa and bossa nova, and we talked about both of those. And while there is a bunch of different clave rhythms that you can play, those are the main ones. So I don't really want to, I mean, we don't really have enough time to go through. And, you know, frankly, I'd have to like research them myself because it's been a while. And I'm just being as honest as I can. It's like most of the rhythms that I could play right now from a Latin perspective, I wouldn't be able to show you the basis of those rhythms, because I just have kind of forgotten about a lot of them, but I try to filter in the feel. To me, that's the most important thing, right? And we talked about that right off the bat, right? The feel is on 2 and 4, just like swing music. All right, thanks everyone. I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for the questions. I hope you got a lot out of this one. We will see you next Saturday. And I really had fun today. I hope you had fun as well. Go, when the video is posted, actually go to the comments below and give it a thumbs up and some kind of comment. That would be great. I'd appreciate that. And we will see you all next Saturday. My name's